That's what investors look like, right? Yes or no? You guys don't watch Hindi films? Rich fat cats, lots of money, हमारा सब पैसा ऊपर से टपकता है, कोई भी आके बोलता है हमको पैसा दो, हाँ कितना 5 करोड़ का चेक चाहिए या 10 करोड़ का चेक चाहिए, right? I wish that were true, but it's not. Some people think of investors like this, correct? मटका लगाओ, लॉटरी टिकट है, you invest in 100, किधर ना किधर तो भी नंबर लग जाएगा. How does it matter if 99 startups die? If the 100th one becomes like Flipkart or Facebook, then you're sorted for life. Yes or no? That's what I'm going to try to do, and I think this is a big problem. The reason I put up this slide is angel investors like me think of ourselves as being angels. We think ourselves as being good guys, the ones who want to help young, enthusiastic, passionate entrepreneurs to create successful businesses so that we become big shots. And of course, what do you think entrepreneurs think of investors as being like? That's what that little devil is out there. They want to suck all our control of our company away from us. They think no end of themselves. They think just because they can write a check, they can just treat us like dirt. They refuse to answer our emails. They refuse to give us any useful feedback. They refuse to give us any money. And that's what sometimes entrepreneurs think of as investors being. My point is, we're actually not devils and we're not angels. We're somewhere in between. But before I talk about investors, I'm going to talk about you guys. Some of you are going to graduate this year. Some of you are going to graduate in the next 2 years or 3 years or whatever it is. And that's what everyone thinks of when they graduate, okay? This is India. India is shining, rising. You're all IIT grads, you come from great universities, you've got a great education. The world is full of new opportunities. And हम किसी से कम नहीं हैं. If Mark Zuckerberg can create a Facebook, there's no reason why we can't, right? That's what you want, right? Especially when you come to something like this, it's like, what does it require? You think of a problem, you find out a solution, and once you've done that, what's the next step? Okay, I'll keep on waiting until someone gives me an answer. Give me a wrong answer, I don't mind. But I need to make sure that you guys aren't sleeping and are paying attention. What's the next step?
Implementation.
And what do you need in order to implement? Thank you so much. I think the thing is, everyone thinks, yes, this is who I am. I've got this great new idea which no one else in the world has, because it's the best idea in the world. So here I am, I'm Superman. All I need to do is find someone who's going to give me some money. Not a big deal when people are giving $16 billion for a company like Flipkart, which didn't do anything very original. It was just a copy of Amazon. I'm not going to have a hard time raising this money. How hard can it be? And this is the standard answer which every investor gives. Yes or no? So I'll come back to reasons why this is the standard answer. It's a good reason. Do me a favor. Think of yourself as being in the investor's shoes. And this young kid from IIT comes to you and says, will you give me money because this is the startup which I want to fund? What do you think your answer is going to be? And never mind what your answer is going to be. Why don't you ask your dad for some money? And ask him to fund your company and see what his answer is. And then hopefully you'll be a little kinder when investors say no, because you'll understand why you say that. And then of course, instead of being Superman, this is what you start realizing. All your IIT degrees, the fact that you were 100th on the NEET and you got into any IIT, at the end of the day when you actually start, it's a whole new world and you think you're a little baby who's been dumped in a swimming pool. But I do not want to discourage you. I want to tell you that this is something which is well worth doing. But I don't want to paint an excessively rosy picture either, because I don't think that helps anyone. It's not going to be a better process. Of course, there are lots of risks. First thing, which might seem very paradoxical, but preparing for failure is the single most important thing you can do, because if you're prepared for failure, you will not go to pieces when things go wrong. You will take it in your stride. You'll understand it's a part of your journey, and you'll be able to prepare better for success. And that's what learning to be resilient is, because Just like success is never permanent. The moment you got into IIT, you thought, chalo, now I'm set for life. Yes or no? Of course, everyone in your family was so impressed. What a smart kid. First person from our family. 100,000 people applied. Mera beta IIT engineer banne wala hai. And then at the end of the first year, you realize, I'm not special at all. Everyone in my class is smarter than I am. I have to work twice as hard in order to be able to accomplish what they're doing. And therefore, just like you go through these ups and downs, just like you did during your IIT entrance, you're going to have to do the same thing during your entrepreneurial journey. But I will say one thing, it can be a great journey. You can learn a lot about yourself, and trust me, you will learn a lot about the world as a result of being an entrepreneur. So it's definitely worth taking that risk. But having said all this, it's a lonely journey. No one is going to give you a medal. No one is going to give you a prize. No one is going to say, wow, how smart you are, how great you are. Forget about this. People will be supportive as long as things are going well. The moment they won't go well, and I can guarantee you, they will not go well multiple times during your journey, you're going to find you're all alone. Lots of emotional anger. अरे यार मुझको Microsoft में job मिल रहा था. I should have taken that job. What an idiot I am. Or look at my friend. 4 years of slogging, and I still not managed to do anything. And now he's this hotshot engineer who's now working in Seattle. I should have really done what he did. And you're going to have all these opportunities to kick yourself for choosing to be an entrepreneur. And step number 1 is convincing your dad. Why the hell did you go to IIT if you didn't want your job in Infosys, for example? Okay, forget Infosys. No one wants to work for Infosys anymore. But in general, people wanted you to get a safe job. And now you're saying, no, I want to start for myself. Beta, abhi to job kar le, 2-3 saal ke liye to kar le, fir baad mein dekhenge. And the reality is that the moment you start working in a job, it's very hard to do anything else. I think it's important to find support. Where's the best way to find support? Anyone?
Believing in ourselves.
Say that?
Believing in ourselves.
No, but that's internal. I'm talking about external support.
Family support.
Say that?
Family support.
Family. So actually, it's basically your best source of support is other founders and other entrepreneurs. And that's why studying in an engineering college can be so valuable. Because some of your seniors, most of you have started on this journey maybe 4 years ago, 2 years ago. Take advantage of your alumni network. People have a soft corner for the college which they graduated from. They want people from their alma mater to succeed. And they will go out of the way and tell you what the real truth can be. And that's what I meant about other founders. Anyone you meet will be more than happy to share this. Having said this, I think another valuable source of support can be mentors and coaches. Your teachers, your professors within your college, they can be extremely valuable sources. But I think there is a big difference between mentors, consultants, coaches, and investors. And people get very confused. So I get lots of requests, will you mentor me? And the reality is I'm an investor. I sign checks. There are not many investors, so I think the biggest value I can add is to sign checks to help people make their dreams come true. So we will mentor, but we will selectively mentor only the founders we give the money for. Because I have a limited amount of time, I'm an IVF specialist. I have to pick and choose what I do. On the other hand, the ideal mentor is someone who does it because they respect you and you respect them. So that they think they will learn from your journey. Mentors do not charge money. Anyone who charges money, according to me, should not call themselves a mentor. They can call themselves a coach, they can call themselves an advisor, whatever they like, but that's not mentorship. And if you don't believe me, I'd strongly suggest you Google the word mentor. Does anyone know where the word mentor came from? I've really got to worry. Who can I complain to when no one's giving me answers? No one reads any Greek mythology. Doesn't anyone have a smartphone in their hand? How hard is it to just look up Google and find out what mentor was? Okay, I'm going to ask this question at the end of the lecture. No prizes for anyone, but I'm very disappointed that you guys don't know. See, I think the cool thing about being a student is there's so much to learn, and I strongly encourage you to do that. There's a story and a reason behind everything. So, joining incubators is a great example. As the word suggests, it's a very supportive environment. And lots of IITs will have incubators which will help you do this. When you grow up a little bit, you join an accelerator where they put you in touch with other founders, other coaches who will try to help you to be able to achieve success. But this is something I need to warn you about, and this is a big problem in the Indian startup ecosystem. Lots of entrepreneurs are very naive and very immature. And if anyone promises that, yes, we will put you in contact with this investor, we will introduce you to this VC, we will help you get the funding which you want, and actually a lot of these people are parasites. They are not looking after your best interests. They're looking after their best interests because they want a slice of the pie. They want you to pay them a fee. The only person who's going to look after your interests is yourself, so be careful about it. And this is why it can be so helpful to have an advisory board. And therefore you should ask either your seniors or your alumni or your professors, will they be willing to serve on your advisory board? Because they will do this because they're willing to advise you, because they want to see you succeed. I think this is important, and I think as long as you keep on answering questions and as you keep on learning to ask questions, you'll be fine. I tell everyone the quality of an answer depends on the quality of the question. And that's the reason why I like coming to events like this. I'm always hoping someone's going to ask me a question which I haven't thought of before. Because guess what, if you ask a good question, I can do a LinkedIn post. Because if you ask a question, maybe someone else had that same question. So why not share that answer with the rest of the world? And I think this is important. Never ever think that you have the answer so that you know everything. Because it's physically impossible, especially given the fact that knowledge is growing so exponentially. So as long as you're curious and you're willing to learn, I think that's valuable. You know, so if I were the director of the IIT, if I would graduate an IIT student, this is what I would give them. I would give them a license plate. I said, now that you spent 4 years at IIT, you are now licensed to go out in the world and learn more about the world. Because the only thing we'll be able to do in this 4 years of engineering is teach you how to learn. Because the fact of the matter is, half of what you're going to be taught is going to become obsolete or is going to become irrelevant. And especially in engineering or in computer programming, that's just going to be absolutely true. So you need to master your fundamentals, but you also need to remember that a lot of what you've been taught is going to become irrelevant soon. Which is why the key ingredient for success, and that's why the most important thing in an engineering college is to teach people how to learn, how to unlearn, and how to relearn. And that's why we need to teach you how to do that. Interestingly, the first thing you need to learn is how to sell. People don't understand that, and people look down on salesmen. And I think that's so tragic because it's actually the most difficult thing in the world to do. And the reality is we're selling all the time. You're selling to your girlfriend when you decide you want to go to one Star Wars movie and she wants to go see a romantic movie. You're selling your father on the fact that you want to become an entrepreneur rather than join a job. That's convincing people, and that's the hardest thing to do. I think the most important thing when you're learning to sell is learn how to tell stories. You know, we have two parts in our brain, right? We have what is called the midbrain. That's the emotional brain, the thalamus, which responds to emotions, what's called fast thinking. And there is a slower part of your brain, what's called slow thinking, or the cerebral cortex, which uses logic. And we all think of ourselves as being very logical and rational, but guess what? The emotional brain is the one which always gets activated first. So interestingly, it's your feeling which comes first, and then you think of reasons why your feeling was right. So if you learn to tell stories, you learn to be able to engage with everyone. It's important to lead a team, and I think that's the great thing which Gopinath has done by helping to organize something like E-Summit'. It's not very hard to do things for yourself. You know, you're motivated, this is important to me, I'm going to do it. But to get other people to do things for you, to be able to delegate and make sure that actually gets done is 10 times harder. And sometimes you get so frustrated, you say, why don't I just do it myself? But the moment you do it yourself, you're never going to be able to grow. And that's why that's an important skill to master. I think this again is important. You know, typically we all take pride in the fact that we're very good at theory, we're very good at answering MCQs or doing essay answers. But until you get your hands dirty, and that's one of the things I really liked about one of the pitches I heard at the investor session. This is someone who actually wants to do agri-business, but who's gone to the farms, who's actually lifted sacks of potatoes himself and sold them because he understands what it's like to be a farmer. This is important. You will have your good days, you will have your bad days, and that's never going to change. And that's going to be true all throughout your life. You have to learn to be patient. You have to be persistent. But the best way to do this is to work in a startup. And I'm not saying necessarily as an intern, because sadly interns are not treated very well in most startups because they're not given enough opportunity to be able to prove themselves. But I would say the right thing to do is identify a hot startup where you want to work and offer to work for free if that's what they want. So the deal, you can sell yourself by saying, look, I will work free for a month, no strings attached. If at the end of 1 month I have not been able to prove any value, I will leave. No harm done. But if at the end of the month I can prove that I am indispensable, then will you promise me an internship or a job or whatever else? And I think this is one way of aligning interests. And if you make that kind of offer, I don't think any employer is likely to say no to you. Any answers? What are the sources of funding? Where do you get money from? Okay, good. I'm glad someone's paying attention. Before you go to friends and family, the right answer is earn your money for yourself. You're engineers, boss. It's possible for you to earn money on the side and also utilize that same money. So you can earn money by doing a consultancy, and that is money which you can then store and save and invest and then utilize as your own funds. There's nothing wrong with working in a job, and typically most Indian jobs, you actually only have to use your brain for about 3 or 4 hours. Do you agree with me? The rest of the time is pretty much free. So you can moonlight, you can do whatever else you like and earn enough. And there's nothing wrong with actually doing your startup while you're working in your job. It really doesn't matter. And that's what bootstrapping is all about, which means you need to be able to find early paying customers and convince them that you're providing a solution for which they have to give you money. Family, friends, school has to come, but I don't think they should come as plan A, unless you're lucky and you have a rich father-in-law. But that's an expensive father-in-law, trust me. You will most certainly regret marrying that woman at some point. So it's far better to just stick to your own resources. Customer funding is what I meant about bootstrapping, because this is great validation. The one person who loves you is your customer, because you are providing a solution which helps reduce their problems. And if you do that, and if you're willing to pay, they will act as partners. It's in their best interests for you to improve the solution so that you can provide a better product for them. Anyone knows what crowdfunding is? There are lots of sites which offer this. Again, I think you should keep an open mind and you should explore all these possibilities. Most probably you will end up raising zero money on crowdfunding platforms. It's not easy. But still, at least you will get a sense of what it's like to sell to an outsider. And you know, you may hit the lottery, who knows, it's worth trying. You will learn from other people who are trying to raise funds from a crowd. How are they telling their stories? How are they doing a better job? So explore all these alternatives. Anyone know what an ICO is? I'm actually worried about you guys. Does anyone know what an IPO is? Thank you very much. So what do you think an ICO is? Sorry? Thank you so much. It's an initial coin offering. Everyone's heard of blockchain, bitcoins. Yes, so this is one of the fancier ways of being able to raise money. Again, please Google it. I'm not going into these details. The only point is there are lots of different ways out there. And if I give the same talk after 3 years, I'm sure there'll be something else. It really doesn't matter. I think this is really important. The trouble with most people is they fall in love with their ideas and they say, this is such a cool idea and I want to be funded for it. I know no one is going to like me when I say this. But you know, I had 10 great ideas before breakfast. Has anyone read Alice in Wonderland? So that's what the great queen says. But so really, and please, you know, I mean, typically you write down your ideas and you see those same ideas after 1 year and you will cringe. And you'll say, what an idiot I was. And that's fine, you know, we're all idiots, we all keep on improving. But please don't fall in love with your ideas because most of them are going to turn out to be terrible. I think this is really important. The more the ideas you have, the better the chance that one of them will turn out to be right. You know, we all talk about Facebook, but there were lots of different iterations before it finally reached that particular format. Always remember that. This is a big problem. And, you know, I always think, when you have a pitching event, The agenda for the pitching event should be to teach people how to pitch. But the worst thing about pitching events, and I said that, is that the only people in the pitching event is the founder who's giving the pitch, who's so nervous that he can't think straight, and the investor who really doesn't want to learn anything. The guys who can actually learn from the pitch are other entrepreneurs who can listen to what he's doing well, who can listen to the mistakes so that they won't repeat the same mistakes. And the worst thing about all these pitch events is you do not allow other entrepreneurs to listen to the pitches. That makes no sense to me. How will you improve your own pitches until you listen to good pitches and bad pitches? So the common thing is, oh, that pitch is confidential. Someone is going to steal the pitch. Anyone want ideas for pitches? Please email me. I will send you 100 pitches. I get 100 pitches by email every single day. You just do a Google search and there are more than enough pitches. So the pitches really doesn't matter. There is no new idea in the world. How many people agree with me that there is no new idea in the world? So tell me why I say that.
There is always a solution. We just have to discover it. There's nothing more.
I think that's a perfect point, because ideas don't come from any, right? If you learn where ideas come from, they come from your brain presumably, unless of course you're fortunate if you have a direct hotline to God who tells you stuff which no one else knows. But typically your ideas come from other ideas which you had. You've read about them, you've seen them, you adapted them from some other field. So every idea is a mishmash or a hodgepodge of something else which you're applying to something else. So therefore really ask people for criticism about your ideas. That is the most valuable function an investor can provide. He can tear your ideas to shreds. You know, people get upset when I criticize them. I said, I'm doing this as a favor to you rather than you waste time and money and then realize it was a bad idea. He will pick holes, tell you what's wrong and help you improve. And again, this is a big problem. Oh, but I'm so passionate about your idea. You know, you'll find lots of passionate actors in Bombay, in restaurants, serving as waiters. There's no shortage of passion for anything and everything, and that really doesn't help. It's much more important that you do something concrete. I think this is important. It's simple to find investors, but it's not easy. And let me explain the difference. You can send emails. Cold emails also work. So for example, I'm signing checks. If someone sends me the right email, there's a very high probability I will reply. But you send me a generic email, you send me an email which is not addressed to me, you send me an email where I'm marked on a CC to 10 other VCs, you send me an email which has nothing which I'm interested in, you think I'm going to reply to that email? Forget about it. It's not my fault that I'm not replying to the email. It's your fault that you've not spent enough time and energy crafting and personalizing that email that I want to reply to. LinkedIn is great for finding investors. You can always send connects. Someone will know someone else. There's just 6 degrees of contact, and in your case, it will most probably be even smaller. So it's not very hard. Warm introductions is the best way. What is a warm introduction? Find out someone who knows that person and say, will you please put in a good word for me? We're much more likely to listen to these people. This is very important. And I think this is something which every student sitting here should do. I think every student should have their own website. That's your digital real estate. It's going to remain with you for the rest of your life, which is the next 30, 40, 50 years, and it will keep on evolving. So of course have a LinkedIn profile, of course do everything else, and let everything link to your website. Because at some point when you're applying for a job 4 years from now, someone is going to Google your name, and if your website comes up, you're standing out from the rest of the other 99 people who are applying for that job. You're saying you're thoughtful, that you update your website, you have a particular opinion, and if you define your particular area of interest, whether it's something you learned in class today, whether it's about a book which you read, or whatever it may be, who knows? I think this is something which will help you. If you establish yourself as a thought leader, people will say, hey, that was interesting. You compared Flipkart with Amazon, tell me why you did that, or what did you come across? That will help. And please remember this. Don't expect a check at the end of the first meeting. Don't expect anything at all. This is a long-term relationship you're trying to build up. So all you want from the first meeting is permission to have a second meeting. What do you want from the second meeting? Permission to have a third meeting. And at some point, if you do this well, it's a bit like dating a girlfriend. If you do this well over a period of time, then automatically you will start getting the right signals that yes, this is the right time you should be talking. Again, equally important, investors are busy people. You know, you might think I send this email, but think about the investor. He gets hundreds of emails from someone like you. If he's ignoring your email, it doesn't mean that he's being rude. It's just that he has other things to do in his life also. This is a big problem. And why is the easiest thing for me to say no? Even if it's just a polite no, then I no longer need to engage and I can continue with the rest of my life. And the rest of my life is doing other things like doing due diligence on guys I've said yes to, making sure that the startups are funded are doing what they're meant to do. Which is why I will say no, because every time I say yes, it creates more work for me. And I'm happy to do the work. I need to do the work. If I don't invest in entrepreneurs, I'm not going to continue remaining an investor. But I need to be picky and choosy about who I'm going to do the work for. So you need to earn that right to ask me to do the work for you. Again, be persistent. I've already said that. And I think, please learn to respect investors. You know, on LinkedIn, I get so many negative comments. Who the hell do you think you are, Dr. Malpani? Just because you sign checks, you're treating entrepreneurs like dirt. Why would I want to treat entrepreneurs like dirt? I respect entrepreneurs. If I didn't respect entrepreneurs, do you think I would sign checks for them? The reason I sign checks is because I respect them. But I think it's also important to understand our limitations and constraints. And the more you understand them, the easier it is for us to be able to help you. I think learning to pitch is an important skill and art. And it's not just a question of learning to pitch to investors. You use exactly the same set of skills when you're pitching to customers. And this is something you need to learn. People make more mistakes. And the commonest mistake is an NDA. Does anyone here know what an NDA is? Sorry? You know, I should get you there in the yellow shirt. Can you stand up? You're the only guy wearing the yellow shirt. Yes, stand up. I'm going to do this for everyone, okay? So I'm going to make sure no one is sleeping. You know what an NDA is? Okay, sit down. Yes. But if, okay, let's see. Okay, perfect. So an NDA is a non-disclosure agreement. NDAs are very important when one large company is talking to another large company and you have confidential proprietary secrets which you do not want to share because you spent a lot of time and energy on creating that intellectual property. NDAs are not useful when you're sending a pitch to an investor because typically you send a pitch, 5 other people must have sent a very similar pitch. No investor is ever going to sign an NDA. Because the moment he signs an NDA, it's effectively going to be, I can't accept any other pitches from someone else because I don't know what that pitch will be. You're in the grey jacket, the black jacket. Sorry. Okay. You know what a DCF is? Okay.
Discounted cash flow.
Perfect. Someone's paying attention. So, what does valuation mean? What are you doing when you're asking the investor for money? You're telling the investor, I'm going to give you a certain proportion of my company, and this is the amount of money which I want for it. So, therefore, that's called a valuation. There are multiple ways of doing valuation. You talk to any accountant, and the standard answer is what is called a DCF or a discounted cash flow. And it's a simple spreadsheet and you calculate. But all discounted cash flows are works of fiction, imagination, fantasy. Because a discounted cash flow completely depends on the terminal value. Which means after 5 years you say, my company is going to be worth $1 billion. And if after company is going to be worth $1 billion, the present valuation of my company should at least be $10 million. And therefore you should give me $1 million. I wish that were true, but it's not. But part of the reasons I'm putting up these words is it's part of your job if you're serious about being an entrepreneur to be able to learn some of this stuff. You cannot afford to say, hey, I'm an engineer, I'm a domain expert, and I don't need to understand. I'll employ a chartered accountant to do this. Does not work. If that's what you want to do, please, for heaven's sake, don't become an entrepreneur because you're not doing anyone a favor. You have to be willing to learn things which are outside your comfort zone. You can't say, मुझको accounting नहीं समझता है. None of that is ever going to work. सब कुछ समझना ही पड़ेगा if you want to become an entrepreneur. Or you create a founding team where someone else will have complementary skill sets. That's fine. Please don't try to bluff. If I ask you a question and you don't know the answer, perfectly okay. I'm sure you guys will ask me lots of questions I don't know the answer to, and I'm not going to pull a fast one. No one's going to respect you any the less. And the right thing is I don't know, but I will find out and get back to you. Oops. Wow, I finished 30 minutes. If you need to let me know, is that okay? Or okay, sorry. So I think this is the other thing. When we try to give feedback or criticism, don't get defensive. Please understand, it's perfectly okay. Listen. You know a lot more about what you're doing. I've only listened to you for 5 minutes. Maybe my criticism is rubbish, but at least understand where I'm coming from and tell me why I'm wrong. This is a big problem. We keep on hearing about, I had this good idea 5 years ago, but I didn't do anything about it, and someone else started Ola. How does it matter? You know, it's the guy who started it who's going to ultimately get up all the credit. So all of us want to be entrepreneurs, but having the courage to take that step is extremely hard. What do we as investors worry about? What I call the red flags. Biggest red flag is someone comes and says, I want to send you a pitch and I want you to invest in me. If someone sent you an idea and said, will you fund me, will you guys do it? You won't. Will anyone do it? So if you won't do it, why do you expect us to do it? How many of you have sent pitches with an idea and asked for funding? Be honest. Come on guys, don't lie to me. Okay, alright, lie to me if you don't want to stand up. But I get this all the time. I've had this clever idea which is going to fix a broken healthcare system. I have this great idea to help kids become better learners. I'm going to use AR and VR in order to teach all kinds of things. We get great ideas. But if you only have an idea, you're not even bothered to start implementing it, I don't think you earn the right to really ask anyone for money. Big problem again. In the first year, I will learn so much. In the second year, by the time third year, it's an exponential this thing that's called a hockey stick. And by the time in the fourth year, I'm going to earn $1 billion. Only happens in storytellers. Big red flag. People have this great thing. It's such an original, unique idea that there is no competition. Yellow shirt. Why do I say no competition is a red flag? Because no competition means only two things. What are those two things?
Maybe they think their idea is unique.
Sorry?
Maybe they think their idea is unique, so there is no competition.
They think that, so why is that a red flag for me?
Because no idea is...
No. That means two things. One is that really it's such a bad idea that no one else has bothered to implement it, or people who've tried to implement it in the past have failed so miserably, and that's why you've not bothered to find it out. And the other thing is you've been lazy, and you've not bothered to do your homework to find out that there is competition. So that one is no skin in the game, which means if you've not bothered to bootstrap, if you've not bothered to raise your own funds or do anything else, then I don't think it's fair on your part to ask me to do that. And this is very common. The good thing is these buzzwords change all the time. Sometimes it's blockchain, sometimes it's AI, it's deep learning, neural networks. Boss, we've all heard these buzzwords. You know, I can do a Google search as quickly as you guys can. So don't try putting a fast one. This is the stage which all entrepreneurs worry about, what we call due diligence. Which means you send me a pitch, this sounds interesting, and this is what I'm going to do. I think there is a certain process for due diligence. The first is a little bit what I call pre-negotiation. You know, I'm going to ask you certain questions. I'm going to decide, is it worth my while to do a deep dive? So if, for example, you don't fit my investment thesis, you're asking for way too much money, you don't meet an area which I'm interested in, then there's no point in wasting your time or my time, so we move on. We have a due diligence checklist. Incidentally, all this stuff is on our website so that people know exactly what we're going to do and why we're going to do it. We then negotiate, and if everything goes well, we offer a term sheet, which means fine, these are the terms and conditions. If you fulfill these, then we're okay with giving you the money. So what about the funding? As I said, negotiation is important. There is nothing written in stone. Sometimes the problem with this is people have very unrealistic expectations. Why is that? Because unfortunately, Indian investors and entrepreneurs aren't very open about discussing what their successes and failures have been. So everything you read is from Y Combinator or from Silicon Valley, and everything is in millions of dollars. But you know, sadly, we don't live in Silicon Valley. We live in India. It's a completely different world, and the sooner you understand that, the better. Which is where the problem with valuation comes in. Common thing. We don't care about the valuation, Dr. Malpani. Whatever money you give us is fine. That's terrible. It's your company. You're the one who's running it. I'm not doing any charity by giving you the money. You have to be able to tell me, this is how much my valuation is. You have to justify that valuation. So I respect your ability to be able to come up with a figure. Does that mean I'm going to give you what you ask for? Forget it, not going to happen. But then at least we have a starting point where we can both discuss and finally come to a figure both of us are comfortable. Control, big problem. Because everyone thinks of investors as being the big, bad, greedy guys who want to own your company and take over control. That's not going to happen, trust me. We are busy enough, we have enough to do in our life. We have no desire to be entrepreneurs. We've been there, done that. We're quite happy for you guys to do all the hard work. We're quite happy for you to retain the control. So if any investor asks you for too much control, that's actually a red flag. We don't want it. We want you to run the company. And again, I apologize for some of these buzzwords, but a CCPS is a convertible compulsory preferential share, which means we give it in tranches. What does that mean? That means we give you some money up front, we give you some time to be able to prove your performance, and if you give that, we give you the rest. Again, before we actually give you the money, we make you sign what is called a term sheet. That is then evolves into what is called an SHA or a shareholder agreement. All this was Greek and Latin to me, and it's still Greek and Latin for lots of entrepreneurs. You cannot afford to let it be. You don't have to become a lawyer yourself, but you need to understand what these words mean. Again, there are enough standard templates. You don't have to reinvent them. Don't worry too much about the areas of disagreement. If you agree about 9 out of 10 things, you'll mostly find a way of agreeing on the 10. And please find a startup-friendly lawyer. What does that mean? This is typically not your uncle who has no idea just because तुम्हारा चाचा high court में lawyer है, इसका मतलब नहीं कि he's the right lawyer for you. A startup-friendly lawyer understands it, has helped other startups before, and knows what to do. Again, it's a completely different. Whom do I fund? Again, people don't understand this, and you have to fall in love with the team. You have to see, wow, this guy's smart. I want to be able to spend time with him. He may or may not make me money, outcomes no one can control, but I'm going to learn a lot from him during the process. We fund people for non-financial reasons. Does this make any sense? Not from a logical point of view, but if you remember that 90% of startups are going to fail, no matter what. This is the only logical way of assuming that yes, this startup is also going to fail. It's what I call my learning on investment versus the return on investment. So that I'm a doctor, I may know a lot about healthcare. I know nothing about fintech. I know nothing about cryptography. I know nothing about lots of things. And if I can find a smart entrepreneur, either in the fintech space or the edutech space, who wants to do something because he's passionate, he thinks he can challenge all the incumbents, and he thinks he can win, he obviously has some special insights which he can share with me, and I'm very happy to learn. These are the 3 things we look for, and these are not negotiable. Integrity. And this is why we keep on having multiple conversations. Do you say one thing in January, you change your story in February, do you tell me one thing and in March you tell someone else something else? These are red flags. We can't compromise, because if you're going to cheat someone else, very high chance you're going to cheat me. Curiosity, because the world is going to change 2 years from now. Are you going to be able to keep up? And humility means, are you going to be willing to respect the fact that you could be wrong, and perhaps that there is some value which an investor can add to your life? And that's why the willingness to teach me, and equally the willingness to learn, because there are certain things I know which perhaps you don't, because I've funded other startups before. This is perhaps the most difficult thing for an entrepreneur to get. But from my point of view, if you have paying customers, the technical word for this is if you have traction, which means if you have product market fit, if you have shown me that your product adds value to a customer's life and they're willing to pay for it, I'm going to be impressed enough and say, yes, you are worth funding. So bootstrapping is, you spend out of your own pocket to be able to do it. It shows that you have faith in yourself. And the way to do bootstrapping is not by buying Google AdWords, because that's an expensive way of doing it. There are lots of clever ways. Again, this is something you can Google, what's called guerrilla marketing or word of mouth marketing, where one customer refers you to a second customer who refers you to a third customer. Best way of getting customers. And that's why I keep on saying, customers come before investors. In the dictionary also, and in a startup's life also. So if you focus half your love and energy which you do on investors, if you do that same energy on customers, you'll do a far better job. And trust me, if you get customers who are willing to pay you, investors will be happy to line up to fund you. This is important. I think there is a difference between smart money and dumb money. Not all investors are the same. Do your homework. Just like we do our due diligence on you, you need to do your due diligence on us. Who have we funded in the past? Do our funders say good things about us? Have we cheated other funders before? All this is important. Treat the money with respect. Taking someone else's money is a lot of responsibility. If you don't handle that money well, we will make your life miserable. I can promise you that. We don't mind losing the money, but we do mind you're not treating it responsibly. Ultimately, at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, it's a marriage. So you date multiple investors, we date multiple entrepreneurs, we use brokers or matchmakers in order to find out what the right fit is. You will have divorces also. Not all these marriages necessarily work out well, but ultimately it's a question of using the same principles. Again, these are some red flags which I can see now. If the first question an investor asks you is a guaranteed rate of return, or how much return you can give them, you should worry a lot. Because the reality is no one in the world can predict that. And you don't want to make unrealistic promises you can't fulfill. And you should worry if the investor doesn't respect it. So if an investor gives you an appointment and doesn't bother to show up, or makes you wait forever and ever, that's a red flag. I don't think you should accept disrespect from anyone. The ideal thing is don't push sale your company. The right thing is to get investors to come. And the best way to do that is to create your website, to publish a lot of blogs on LinkedIn or on your blog, which will position you as being the expert on that particular area. And it's fine if an investor says no. It's not a personal rejection. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. It just means that we are not the right investors for you. And you need to then figure out why until you find someone else. And please, for heaven's sake, learn to be a little bit flexible. You know, ultimately, 100% of 0 is still 0. And 90% of 100 is still valuable. Sometimes you need to learn a little bit of it. I think this is a big problem because every time you read in the press what you read about is so-and-so raised so much money. But I think funding is not a validation. Every startup is actually a business. It's called a fancy name and it's called a startup, but at the end of the day, the job of a business is to get paying customers. And funding is not. But all these things are important. Repeat. It's not enough just getting the first customer. We can all fool some of the people some of the time. That's not very hard. But they need to be repeat customers. They need to be paying customers. It's not like मैंने market research किया, 100 लोगों ने बोला हाँ मैं तुमको पैसा देने वाला हूँ. And they've got to be satisfied customers. They've got to refer other people. If you meet those criteria, any investor will be interested. Don't go by vanity metrics. Don't go by, I have so many Facebook likes. I have so many people on my website. What good does that do me? All those Facebook likes are great for Facebook because Facebook makes money off them. You as a company don't. And again, those are not personal. And you don't keep on comparing yourself with all the Googles of the world and stuff like that. Those are the exceptions and the outliers. Most of us aren't. And again, finally, remember, investors are optional. You can always bootstrap. There is a big difference between angels and VCs, and people don't understand this. And I think it's important that you do your homework. Don't treat all of them as the same bucket. Angels invest personal money. This is money I have earned as a doctor. We have 50 different kinds of angels. Some people will do angel investing because they think that's what they need to do. Some people will do it for reputational reasons. Some people will do it, because you like hanging out with young entrepreneurs, because you want to be more optimistic about the future. But every angel is different. So you've got to ask these questions. When did they actually sign the last check? Or did they sign one check 10 years ago and do they still call themselves angel investors? Because on LinkedIn you can call yourself what you like. Doesn't mean you actually are. And a VC structure is completely different. Because as an angel investor, when I fund a startup and that startup goes for a toss, the only person who gets upset with me is my wife. But she's married to me, so she can't do much about it. So she accepts the ups and downs. But VCs, what are called general partners, raise money from limited partners. And they need to raise the next fund, and they need to raise the next fund. So they have to provide a return. So for VCs, it's purely financial plays. And often angels and VCs don't necessarily see eye to eye. And that's the problem with VCs, that they have what is called an institutional imperative. It has to be decision making by investment. I keep on emphasizing this, and nothing wrong. Even if you run a startup and it fails, you will become a better human being. You will become a better employee for any corporate job you work. I promise you that. You will become a better husband also. You'll become a better wife also, because you'll have learned lots of related skills which will help you manage, if nothing else, your household budget. And you'll become a better parent. I promise you this. Because you will understand that failing is a part of life, and when your kid fails, because you fail yourself and you're learning new things, you'll be much more charitable. No matter how smart you are, no one knows when startups fail. It's a numbers game, which is why we invest in portfolios. Try to increase the odds that one will succeed. And it's fine, we hear all the success stories, but lots of these startups would have died, lots of them, if they didn't get funding at the last minute. So it's just that they were persistent and they hung on to the game. And let me also warn you, once you raise money once, you will inevitably need to keep on raising money. Every 18 months as you continue to grow, you want to go to new markets, something you need to get good at. Sorry, I've put this list of books here. Again, you can, all these books are on my LinkedIn list. I would say, if you join IIT because you need to learn to be an engineer, and then you decide you want to become a startup founder or an entrepreneur, it makes no sense to me that you will not bother to buy and read at least 5 different books written by 5 thoughtful people on what entrepreneurship is. These books may say different things, they may have different points of view, but if someone has taken the time and trouble to put it together in a book and you refuse to read the book, I think that's really disappointing. That means you're not going to be able to learn new stuff at all. This is just a sample. There are lots of other books, lots of books from Indian authors. I think the amount of value you will get from these books, all these guys who've written these books have made lots of mistakes. They will make sure that you don't repeat those same mistakes. This is not a self-portrait, guys. I'm not like this. Most investors aren't like this. Trust me about this. Yes, we need to make money. It's hard-earned money, but we don't want to make money by shafting entrepreneurs. And again, whenever you fail, think about what you've learned from that failure. So it's okay to fail, but fail on a small scale so that you can recover. So that hopefully you'll be like this. So that today you're a big fish in a small pond, tomorrow you'll be a small fish in a big pond, and then we'll grow to be a big fish in a big pond if we all work together. Okay,